Alexander Kaufman is an independent reporter who's covered climate change, energy, and also geopolitics for more than a decade. He also publishes on the content website Substack under the title field Notes with Alexander Kaufman, joining us from New York. Alexander, it's good to have you on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So let's dive straight into the global nature of the torrential flooding that we've seen the last couple of weeks. Obviously, the absolutely devastating and heartbreaking situation that played out in central Texas. Shortly after that, we saw similar scenes in New Mexico, though less severe. And then this week, here where you and I are in New York City and its surroundings. But remind us what other parts of the world have been impacted recently by some of these floods.
It's been all over in virtually every continent. Right now, there are people missing in Catalonia, Spain, and severe flooding in a lot of the tourist areas of Spain. There was a massive monsoon flood that occurred on the border between Nepal and China that swept away a bridge and swept 20 people away who are still missing. And even in South Africa, it was a few more weeks ago, but you had a death toll that went up in the dozens, also from flooding. So this is something that is afflicting many countries worldwide, and we are certainly feeling it very acutely here in the United States.
And then there's a question of what's behind this. Certainly the climate crisis is something that is still heavy on the minds of so many. In your view, what are some of the factors that are currently driving some of these record rainfall amounts that we're seeing all over the world?
It's difficult to attribute individual weather events to climate change. That's a whole field called attribution science, which is emerging and growing ever more precise by the year, but is not quite there yet that we can automatically connect an event immediately to climate change. That said, these types of trends are perfectly in line with what climate forecasters expect to happen in a warming world. What we're seeing right now, particularly in the northern hemisphere, are warmer oceans that are keeping precipitation just dropping massive amounts of water at a faster pace, but moving in their clouds much slower. And as a result, just deluging places that are not designed to handle that amount of precipitation in that short a period of time.
It's something that we have heard from officials on the ground in Texas, of the waters rising so quickly, so suddenly. And then you consider the images that we've seen where you and I are here in New York. You see water gushing out of the subway manholes onto platforms, roadways in New Jersey. All of these images, from your point of view, what should they tell us about the infrastructure in these cities? Now, what we saw play out earlier this week in New York, it was a relatively short-lived weather event. So if we saw these kinds of situations play out with that fairly small but deadly storm, what could happen with the future superstorm Sandy? What should people in some of these cities be worried about?
I mean, look, a future superstorm Sandy isn't even the thing that we have to worry about in the near term. Look, the type of storm that we had last night felt in many ways like the sort of summer thunderstorm that I remember in my youth, but we didn't have this kind of response in our infrastructure to that flooding at the time. The reality is that New York City's drainage system was designed to handle a storm with about 1 3/4 inches of rain every 5 years. What we got last night were 2 inches of rain over the course of 1 hour. So it automatically eclipsed that, completely overwhelmed the system, and left us totally unprepared to deal with these kinds of disasters. These are mounting billion-dollar disasters that occur in greater numbers by the year. Has already been a record number of catastrophe bonds that insurance companies have sold this year, and we're only halfway through the year. So, there is a growing recognition in financial markets, in the scientific community, and, starting in infrastructure planning, that we are dealing with a much different beast in terms of the weather patterns that we're experiencing, and things have to change. The real question is just, where's that money going to come from? Who's going to pay for it? And who's going to be willing to deal with that disruption in the meantime while we upgrade virtually everything?
Yeah, each massive storm and each flooding event certainly a stark reminder that some of this infrastructure certainly needs to be revisited. And as you point out, there's an intersection of Mother Nature and business, the economy as well, that also needs to be addressed. Alexander Kaufman, again, an independent reporter, really appreciate your perspective. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.